Welcome everyone to On Podcast, the Microsoft podcast, where we talk about Microsoft stuff on a podcast. I am your co-host today, Kareem Anderson. I'm joined by the most greatest co-host.
Earth Bacchus.
Yeah, and we have a ton of news because, well, it was a week and Microsoft filled it with a ton of news. We're going to start off by giving you the rundown, and then we're going to jump into everything just like we normally do every week. So, right off the top, we have our Build 2022 recap, which will take us a bit to get through because despite there not being a ton of consumer-based news that we were all hoping for, we'll get through our predictions that were all fails in a minute. But there was still a lot of information that's worth noting for any developers and anybody who's expecting cool stuff down the pipeline.
Yeah, it'll be as quick as possible as we could make it. Basically, a four-pronged approach to our recap. We have Windows 11 news, Teams news, hardware news. We talked about hardware last week, and there was hardware, but not that kind of hardware. And
Yeah.
also the other news, the boring news. So that's four parts for our build recap.
For those of you who are still hanging in there with us beyond the field stuff, we will get to some more interesting things like Windows 11 22H2 getting ready to be delivered to everybody. And we'll kind of go through what to expect. Again, these are a lot of the things those of you who are insiders will probably have roll your eyes about. But for anyone who's new to Windows, these are some cool things to kind of make note of as well.
And then the third topic is something about the culture inside Microsoft being very quote unquote toxic per se, based off of a report released by Business Insider.
Yeah, Microsoft has had their headlines of toxic culture to varying degrees. Again, I believe this happens in most companies, unfortunately, and we're working. I think everybody's working towards rectifying that. We'll get into some of like the toddier details later on in the story. Then we get into our fun parts, which is the fast recap. This one happens to be chock full of stuff about upcoming things, such as Microsoft saying like, "Hey, there's official Xbox stick coming soon,
but like
soon-ish."
but like with no official details and just a quote saying we're working
Wah,
on it,
wah,
but we don't
wah.
know what it is.
Yeah. Then we have people who have been finally, I mean, it's almost been almost a year, but it is finally coming out to devices, which is the dynamic refresh rate for Surface Laptop Studios. So that zero or what is it, 0 to 120 or whatever, that's supposed to be automated as far as being able to touch your screen or draw on your screen or read anything in your screen with variable refresh rates, will be hitting devices soon.
And then a new optional update for Windows 11, which delivers a brand new feature.
And then we'll be talking about Microsoft slowing the hiring process. I mean, we used to talk about how Microsoft's loading up every division and every team with new people. This is now happening in reverse.
And after that, we have our week ahead segment where we have another giveaway.
Yeah, we are just tossing things left and right. It's like spring cleaning, so to speak. And I think you were reviewing. Oh, your Dell monitor reviews are coming up as well.
Same thing from last week, but now I'm
Okay.
gonna finally have it ready to roll that it's not build and we're not that busy anymore.
Yeah, I believe I should after Memorial Day have the official write up for the Yoga 9i, and I got an Acer Swift, by the way, that I'll be playing with for the next week or two. So I'll kind of hint over what that is, what people kind of expect from that from my like, day and a half of playing around with it. With all that said, let's get into the news, shall we?
Yeah, we are starting off with our Build 2022 recap, which, again, as we mentioned at the top of the show, is a four-part recap. We'll first start with the Windows news, then move on to the quote unquote hardware news, and then we'll touch on Teams as well as the other news coming out of from Build at the end. But the biggest news is the Windows news, which, because Panos Panay is in charge of Windows now, he was up front and center at Build in a special 30-minute long session. And he talked a lot about the future of Windows 11 development and some new features for the operating system. And some of the big stories coming out of that session is the Microsoft Store ads, as well as an incoming ability to restore your apps between different devices in the Microsoft Store. And for consumers, Microsoft talked about the third party widgets finally coming to Windows 11, as well as a revamped and unified OneNote app on Windows 11.
Yeah, some of those details are about the Microsoft stores that they will be offering ways for people to use advertisements, specifically Microsoft Ads or advertisement platform. I don't know if any of you have played around with it. I'm a marketing guy. I have. It's very similar to Google Ads, essentially, but now people will be able to target specific times when they want their ads to show up on the Windows operating platform and on the browser, things of that nature. So It just gives developers and people who are making apps a little a much better way to get their app in front of the people that are most likely to click and convert and make purchases or whatever they're going to do with the app. Prior to this, I think Microsoft would do what they thought was best and kind of put ads in front of people that was sort of related, and you'd be like, I'm looking at productivity apps. Why am I seeing Candy Crush? So, this is just another way to try and help developers. I don't know if you're limited to using Microsoft's platform, but I would assume you are because it is a Microsoft operating system and ecosystem.
Yeah.
I doubt you're going to be able to get Google ads in there if you already have an account with them. So, be prepared to set up a Microsoft Ads account in the future if you're trying to advertise your ad in a little more granular way. The next thing we have is app restores, and I think we have a sort of situation like that in the App Store currently, where you can at least keep your library of apps
Yep.
associated with your Microsoft account ID. Right now, I guess you'll be able to, upon your first like install of the operating system or your first purchase of a device, be able to put in your Microsoft account ID, and then those apps will be sitting in the Microsoft Store ready to be updated and installed automatically. Like I said, there's a version of this currently where if you go to the store, you're able to restore your most recent apps on a new device. I think this will at least keep all of them in waiting, maybe little snippets of code where you can just basically hit the update device update settings and get all those apps, which is kind of cool. I mean, it's sort of like Chrome OS in a way, where you can just again sign in with one ID and get everything you need without having to take the time. The hour and a half it takes to set up a Windows device is becoming shorter because of these things. Last thing we had was uh, talk about third-party widgets. I think you're going to talk about this, right?
Yeah, but I want to add some of the other stuff related to the store. I think Microsoft spent
Sure.
like 20 minutes or so during the keynote, breakout keynote, talking about the other stuff coming to the store. You wrote about it on our website, and we'll have the link in the chat if you want to find out more details. But they're also working on a pop-up store experience. So when you click that link, you get a little pop-up letting you know what the app is and where you could download it and what it does. And going back to the most important thing, which is that ability to restore app purchases. There's actually a visual that shows how it will look like. And it's basically you click your library and you'll see a little pop up in the right side of the screen that says, do you want to restore from a computer name? And you could click restore all, and then it would automatically download all of that apps from that other computer. And Microsoft confirmed that it will be coming soon, quote unquote, soon, it's their favorite word, to Windows insiders in the dev channel. So that's rehashing what's new in the Microsoft Store in Windows 11. But now let's move on to the important thing, which is third-party widgets.
I
And they didn't
don't know
spend
how
a
important they are, but yeah.
this is the one thing that we were right about last week when we said this is what we expect, and we were right about the third-party widgets because we knew it was coming. But Microsoft now confirmed how developers will be able to do third-party widgets on Windows 11, and it's basically powered by their adaptive cart system, which is in use across other Office apps. You could see it right now in Outlook as well as in Teams apps, and it's something that they're going to push for widgets as well. So they didn't specify when you'll be able to start making these third-party widgets, but they said there will be an API available for it. And they didn't even showcase any official third-party widgets, but they had a little slide during a breakout session with Kevin Gallo that showed what a third-party widget could look like. And we did some exclusive digging into that session, and we found what could be a Microsoft Teams first-party widget. And it looks like there'll be several different Microsoft Teams widgets, one of which will show you your chats, one of which will show you your meetings, and one of which will also show you your notifications. Now, Microsoft didn't confirm any of this, like any of it at all, which is weird. You think they would, but Kevin Gallo in the presentation, he mentioned this team widget in the present tense. He said, quote unquote, for example, the Teams widget shows where your next meeting is so you can quickly join in with a single click. And he ended it there. But there's a slide to the right of him that showed like what the Teams widget would look like. But it's not an official widget. It's just showing you sample text and sample photos and like sample people names and stuff like that. But to me, I think they just teased a big widget for Windows 11 because it makes sense, right? If you want developers to build widgets, third-party widgets, you show them what you could do with Teams because Teams has that adaptive cards thing, and build their own first-party widget first.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's basically dog fooding to kind of show the potential, the max potential. And this is kind of what Microsoft has lacked, I think, since Windows 8, basically, of
Yep.
showing how powerful developers they have. They always give us these lightweight, streamlined versions of their apps, and then, fail or take forever to add features that they've had in more robust apps. Hopefully, the widgets don't follow the same pattern where we're begging for more feature sets when they could have just done it from the beginning and said, this is the full extent of what a widget can do. Have at it, everybody, versus like, oh, this
Yep.
is the best you guys can do. And they're like, no, 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 we're scrambling to add more features and we're listening to people. And at the end of the day, by the time they add everything we want, we've already moved on from widgets to something else.
And speaking of something else, the big consumer news out of the keynote with Panos Panay and Shilpa, she was also there, is this unified OneNote app. I know you had a chance to play with it, and is it as fancy as they make it out to be?
Not at all. I've been playing with it, and it is a slow blending of the Windows OneNote app, Windows 10, and the current, I guess, legacy app, so to speak. And what they've done is they've done a couple UI tweaks so far. They've blended the ribbon. They've kind of added that drop shadow that they've added to all of their things. They rounded off some edges, and they've actually turned the tabs from what we used to know as manila looking, like if you had a manila folder and it had the design of it. Now they're just full squircles, rectangle kind of things. It's matching design. They've added the sidebar, which is a little easier to navigate because they've, just like they did with the File Explorer, they've expanded or made it in a comfy mode so you can see more text, larger text, things of that nature. I don't know if it's necessarily touch inspired like the OneNote for Windows 10, but they're getting there. Again, this is early times for this app. It's only available with insiders on the beta channel for Office users, and not even everyone's getting it at this exact same moment. So if you don't have it, don't worry about it. It's coming. But again, I would temper my expectations for what to expect. At this point, I would just really like it to be completely stable. Don't crash or anything like that. And to again take a few more flares of the OneNote for Windows 10 that they kind of did, as far as being able to have. I think they used to have thumbnails in the OneNote for Windows 10,
Yep.
where you can identify each folder through an image or something if you put it at the top folder or the top page or something like that. I would like them to bring that over to this design as well. But aside from that, I mean, it's OneNote. It's pretty robust as is. Again, you just clean up some UI and call it a day.
There, one thing I noticed though with it is that it does seem like they've added a new mode where, like, if you pull your Surface Laptop Studio down into that inking mode, or you turn your Surface Pro 8 into a tablet, you get that special inking. Like
Hmm.
it gets rid of all the menus and gives you this massive inking space where you could pull out your Surface Slim Pen 2 and enjoy all of the inking features without having all that annoying menus and sidebars and buttons everywhere.
Yeah, it goes into full screen mode essentially, which gets rid of all of the Chrome and just leaves you with the
Yep.
page that you're on, and then you can kind of hover over or like gesture down the desired things that you need. So if you're going to be moving into more editing mode, you can flick down on the OneNote app and it'll bring down the ribbon again. And again, when it brings it down in two stages because there's the full ribbon, which has the full context of menus that you need, and then there's this, I guess, the 1/3 version of it,
Yep.
which are basically elongated buttons around the top that you can individually pick if you need to just kind of quickly get in and out of something while keeping the full page visible.
And they also added the same tools that you'll see in, I think it's Word or PowerPoint, where you have that ruler and the draw tab. There are some new tools there as well. But the problem is not all of this is rolling out to everyone. Some of it is and some of it isn't. So there was some inherent confusion after the keynote about what could we try and what could we not try.
Yeah, the A/B testing is kind of been the bread and butter, at least for the last few months or so, as they kind of delineate between which branches of development they're doing. Again, I'm assuming they have two different teams, teams
Yeah.
dedicated for each branch, and then once they're ready to push or publish, they have to then have someone in management coordinate those releases. So
Yep.
maybe the beta team that was ready to do certain inking mode features was ready to go before another team was, even though the feature set would have made chronological order to have all of these things. So again, we kind of are only speculating, but give them some time. When this app is ready and finished and done, I hope again it's going to be able to update into the single app like they did with Windows Media Player. Because right now I have two. I have both the Windows 10, Windows OneNote for Windows 10, and the regular one. So once they're ready, I hope you go to the new Microsoft Store, hit update, and now you just have the one app too.
Then one more tidbit from the Windows side of Bill is in a Panos Panay blog post, which I think it was called "Create Next Gen Experiences at Scale with Windows." He mentioned something in the end where he said that a new ability for apps that create and store content in the cloud to integrate custom file explorer and common file dialog content. Now, I'm not sure what that means, but it seems like he hinted at a new feature for the File Explorer in Windows 11 without actually detailing it, because I watched all of the Windows sessions and I did not see a single thing about this. And I guess it's just Panos being Panos and being like, one more thing, but not yet.
Well, I wonder if he's reiterating what we saw, I want to say earlier this year, was it? When I believe one of the Microsoft execs went over commenting, shared comments, if
Oh
they're
yeah,
cloud
yeah,
powered,
right.
essentially.
Yeah,
So what you
yeah.
end up doing is you put all of the code or all of the sourcing of the file explorer in the cloud so that people can see stuff going or happening in real time if you're collaborating over that said documents, or if I'm trying to show you where a certain file is or whatnot, instead of having to take over your system, I can just start highlighting on my version of the file explorer, and you can start seeing it on your version of the file explorer.
And that said, we're going to move on to the juicy stuff now, which is the quote unquote hardware news at Build. We're calling it hardware because Microsoft had physical hardware at Build, but it just wasn't there. It was like in a whole sizzle reel and everything. And if you watch Build, you know what we're talking about, because it happened during the session where they talked about Windows and right after Panos talk. And what we're talking about is Windows on ARM and Project Volterra. It's not a consumer PC. It's not something we can go buy and right now from the Microsoft Store, but rather it's something for devs, and it's a new Mac Mini-like PC from Microsoft, powered by the Snapdragon compute platform. And what's so special about it is what Microsoft went hard in on at Build is something called the NPU, or the Neural Processing Unit, which is something that only the Qualcomm system on chips have right now. And they're playing up how the NPU could be useful for AI and deep neural networks and AI and all that stuff for developers. And this is what they had to show in a little film, in a little reel. It was Project Volterra, and it was the hardware at Build. And we don't know much about it. They didn't say what's powering it, or they didn't give any specific specs or even a release date. They said coming later this summer. But the folks at Windows Central, they had a little deep dive on what they know about it, and they believe that this Project Volterra PC, it was under construction and in development at Microsoft since last summer, and it was built in partnership with Qualcomm. And as far as we know, it's the first Windows on ARM developer kit to ship with a flagship Snapdragon system on chip. And again, we don't know what's powering it. Rumors have that it could be an HCX Gen 3 chip, because that's the latest flagship chip from Qualcomm, and it's right now their next gen chips aren't ready to ship yet. So if I believe that that's what could be inside, and but they haven't said anything official about it as of yet. And that's pretty much it. And it's the what's so special about it is that Microsoft is going hard in on ARM for developers. Last year we saw them do it with consumers with the 64-bit app emulation in Windows 10. But now they want developers to come on board with ARM by showing them the power of the NPU, the neural processing unit, and also by giving them their ARM optimized developer apps like Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code, .NET, Windows Terminal, Windows Subsystem for Linux, Windows Subsystem for Android, and the whole nine yards. And they also confirm that they're working on making a ARM optimized version of Python, Node, JIT, and even LLVM. So that's what That's what the biggest news out of Build was for most people. It was Project Volterra.
Yeah, like you said, it's just kind of showing them how serious Microsoft is trying to get about Android development and how having that lightweight apps or reconverted apps on ARM will help systems in the future. So, your Windows 10X version 4 or 5 could be thinner, lighter, because again, we're not having to, we're able to use the more efficient processors, much smaller diodes and things like that. So, again, it's Microsoft just, priming the waters, and instead of saying, build the best thing you can on your Windows device, which for some developers might be laggy, might not have the best specs, don't have any good reference code or reference pieces. Now you'll have a dedicated device that you can plug in real quick and start going to town on versions of ARM software services as well.
So what do you think about how it looks? I just went on a whole ramble about everything, and I don't think I specifically mentioned how it exactly looks, other than saying it's like a Mac Mini. So why don't you tell the people about what it looks like and your thoughts on the physical hardware itself?
I think Zach over at Windows Central mentioned that it was, he believes it's made by the Surface team. I believe it's made by the same guys who make the Microsoft modern accessories, because it has a very matte black, very utilitarian design. The Surface devices have a certain flair. They use a lot of magnesium, a lot of grays, or if they can mix some colors. This is really just a, black puck. It's the size of maybe, I mean, from the renders, it seems like the size of a small plate, essentially. And it looks like it can be modular, like you can stack a few of these together. I don't know if you want to run entire systems through all three of them or use them as servers at some point. But it's just, like I said, if you've ever seen any of the Microsoft modern accessories, it has the same exact look and feel to it, more so than, say, a black Surface Pro or a black Surface laptop.
Yeah, they mentioned that it's made out of plastic too. I think it was ocean-bound plastic. And then they also
That's right. Yeah.
mentioned that you could stack them on top each other for servers or development scenarios. And
hmm
they also showed us the ports. I think it was USB-A as well as USB-C, and on the other side there's a bunch of buttons. So it seems
Yeah.
like it's a great all-around development system compared to the cheapo Snapdragon 7C developer kit that they put out
Oh,
last
geez.
year,
Yeah.
which was like low powered and only had 4 gigabytes of RAM. So it's really great to see that Microsoft is supporting its developers and going all in on ARM and giving them a powerful system. They even had a demo. I'm not sure if it was live or if it was pre-recorded, but they had a demo where they showed it running and where they showed Visual Studio running in 64-bit and where they had an AI workload with photos. So it seems like it's a very powerful system and a very beautiful system too.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that the sustainability angle helps keep it reasonable for developers, because I know that developers get money from the companies to, make, you know, larger applications, but there are a lot of developers who have to sustain themselves, on their own efforts, and getting up and going is a costly affair. And I don't know if a lot of, companies, keep that in mind, or if they even care about that, if they're just targeting enterprise who could toss tons of, money at these small teams to develop the generic app. So if Microsoft can keep it reasonable, I'm hoping that, that's how they kind of proliferate their efforts, is keep it under 600-700 bucks or whatever for these people.
And being who we are, we were curious about when it will come out. So we asked Microsoft on Twitter and we got a response from Rich Turner. And he told us, and I think it was Richard Woods and a couple of other writers, that they'll be sharing more details later in the summer once they're more certain about actual availability. And he went on to talk about how the pandemic is impacting shipment as well as getting the actual chips out. So hold your breath. Microsoft is working on an ARM PC and it should be pretty awesome.
Yeah, and now our next story is on software. We're going to be moving.
Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, we have. What are we talking about? Teams for? What is Teams?
Teams is getting a new feature called Live Share, and it's
Yes.
basically another way to. I wrote my editor, my other publication. He's like, change our headline to make it seem like Live Share is Screen Share 2.0 because that's basically what it is. It's a way to make screen sharing more interesting. And Microsoft has the tools right now for developers to use to do that. They have the API and the Teams client SDK, which now includes a live share option. And they're able to use, I think it's Azure Fluid Relay to build the live share
The
app.
hosting session, yeah.
Yep. And they showed an app of it on their demo at Bill, and it's basically they had a 3D model at the bottom of Teams and the feed of the people at the top, and they were able to go in and use turn the model around like a 3D model, use a laser pointer and point to specific parts on the model. So it's basically ways of making your meetings more interactive and fun, and not just staring at 2D content on your screen.
Yeah, this is basically, like you said, this is live share uh, at scale because
Yep.
this can also be done instead of just having a one-on-one like you normally might have in like a Skype session or something like that. You can do this at, for larger events, hosting more people. And if you need to have multiple shares at multiple different times, because, say I hand it off to you, then we need to hand it off to our executives, and they want to hand it off to partners to kind of play around with things like that. They're allowing developers to create experiences and apps that would better accomplish this goal within teams. So again, this isn't something that will be native to teams. There will, like you said, there's an SDK for developers to create apps that will allow them to have different versions of souped up sharing features. So it could
Yeah,
be a while before we start seeing this.
the app that I was talking about is Hexagon Live Share, which is one of
Correct.
their partners in this whole thing. So that's one of many apps that are coming for Teams Live Share.
Correct.
And now get us into the remainder of the news from Build, which are the boring stories, boring in quotes, about something about Meta choosing a Microsoft product for their development.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Let me make sure I got it right.
I mean, we say
Mm.
it's boring because it's a headline that not a lot of people might care about, but it's kind of huge because it's not every day that one of Microsoft's rivals go out there and choose a Microsoft product for their AI development as well as their AI workloads, which is what this story is all about.
Yeah, interesting enough, as we had mentioned a few months back, Meta had kind of been taking developers from what would essentially become the metaverse for Microsoft with their Hollands project and getting them to work for them. But I guess they realized that not only do you need the talent, but you also need the resources. And Microsoft Azure is a very big resource when it comes to something like this. Under the partnership, Meta will expand the use of supercomputing power using a dedicated Azure cluster, 5400 GPUs. That includes the latest VM series on Azure, which has an NVIDIA A100 Tensor Core 8 gigabyte GPU. According to Microsoft, Meta will use Azure services. They've used Azure services in the past to train the recent OPT-175B language models. So again, this is just so they can have almost near real time processing for a lot of their metaverse stuff, which could be language translation, calculations, algorithm, data processing for the most part, and data restructuring as well and input. So again, this is just to help speed up what they're going to be trying to do in the metaverse using Azure's cloud services.
And then the other story is Microsoft adding Power Pages as the fifth member of the Power Platform family.
Yeah, Power Pages, they renamed it. I forget what it was originally called. It's had two names prior to this, and I wrote about it. I will hopefully put the two write-ups in the description below. But it's essentially just a quick way for people to spin up single-use dedicated landing pages for the most part. Something you don't, if you're a company and you want to streamline how much you pay for a website and where you pay for it and domains of those things, things of those nature, you can now do this with Power Pages and with Power BI tied to it. You can get all sorts of analytics. But so say, for instance, you need a COVID testing site or, COVID data information, and you just need to spin it up, or something seasonal for, if you're a business, for like, here are our sales for Christmas time, but something you won't necessarily need during the spring or summer. Power Pages will be that equivalent for you. And again, it comes with Microsoft 365 subscription. So this is just another thing to add to your repertoire that kind of works with all the other products that Microsoft offers. And like I said, when you tie it into Power BI and you get those visualizations as well, it's just more data you can give to your company or to your boss or to whoever kind of needs to have that kind of information for return on investment or make strategic moves or whatnot. Again, like I said, you can just spin this up real quick, connect it to everything else, and get tons of data through this. And I believe they're also tying Microsoft advertisement into these Power Pages as well. So if you're driving traffic to that, you will have all the data you need connected to this in one spot versus saying creating a Squarespace and tracking with Google Analytics and then Google Ads and then doing some other things with PayPal for your payment measures and then using another platform for data analysis. You can do all of that within Microsoft.
And all that said, I think we just spent a half an hour going through all of the build news, but it is very important to record and have down in history about what went down in Microsoft Build 2022. So you could go back to it 1 year from now and be like, oh, wow, Microsoft went all in on ARM, and now they're outselling Apple M1 chips.
Or they went all in on ARM and Windows on ARM is died 6 months later.
But jokes aside, time to go back to talking about Windows 11 with the second topic, which is Windows 11 version 2022H2 finally hitting the RTM status. And it was something that, again, last week you and I were like, hey, maybe they would announce on the public stage that 22H2 has RTM, then here's what to expect. But it was a quiet announcement that was made in a blog post on the Windows hardware. Of all places, the Windows hardware certification page detailed something very specific about Windows 11 version 22H2. They mentioned that the minimum acceptable build for Windows 11 version 22H2 certification is RTM build 22621, which is what we talked about last week, and which is what we said would be the leading RTM rumored build for Windows 11. But now, there you have it, folks. Microsoft has confirmed that that is the RTM build, and the first featured update to Windows 11 is heading towards the finish line.
Yeah, do you want to kind of do you know if any of the features that are coming with that for people who aren't insiders, have been playing around with any of the things that we have?
Thing is, Microsoft has never once confirmed about anything that's coming in Windows 11 version 22H2. What they did is, I think they had that event in April where it's Microsoft, where they had the Windows 11 for hybrid work, hybrid work event, and
Yeah.
they had a whole bunch of cool stuff, and they're like coming soon to Windows, but they didn't say what version of Windows or when Windows. But being the experts and the industry insiders that you and I are, and trying all these features through the insider program, we do have some ideas on what you could expect. And that is folders in the start menu, for one thing, tweaks to the tablet mode, that new task manager, the improved search, as well as that live captions features. These are 5 things that Microsoft has repeatedly mentioned over and over and over in the last 2 months. So you could expect this to be in the first Windows 11 featured update.
Yeah, they're finally getting to addressing the Windows Start menu. I know lots of people who have had the version since November are, still stuck with a very limited way to customize that experience and get to it and kind of navigate around it. For those of us who are playing with it, they've improved it a little bit, enough to be able to kind of clean it up. So if there are a lot of apps or pages you need to kind of circle through or select through to get the things you need, you'll not be able to put them in folders. Unfortunately, the folders aren't labeled, so you'll just have to know what they mean by looking at the 4 icons that are visible. But like you said, these are some small features that are coming. We expect a lot more probably by the end of this year. Exactly. But like we said, moving on to the next thing, which is kind of a downer, but we're trying to get through it as professionally and quickly as we can. We have had or seen some reports about the continued toxic management environment at Microsoft. I remember we used to write up a ton of these types of headlines during the Ballmer years because they had stack ranking management or something like that. It was a way that they promoted people that was presumably discriminatory for a lot of people. And so that was one version of the toxicity from the culture within Microsoft. Satya Nadella has taken over, and he's vowed to try and clean it up a bit. And to his credit, there are a lot of employees who love the way he's doing things. But in this new report, and I want to say, make sure I get it right now where it's coming from. Hold on, I apologize. Let's see. It is from Business Insider. they're saying there's a widespread pattern of executive misconduct. But when they say widespread, the examples they have are from three top executives, two who are no longer with the company, one that is still there. The names include Terry Myerson, who of the old Windows team. I believe he made the transition from Windows 8 to Windows 10, and then I guess what we consider Windows 10.5, and then kind of left right before Windows 11. We also have Tom Keene, who's an Azure executive, I believe, who was no longer with the company, but he helped kind of seal the deal with the $10 billion deal with the U.S. Department of Defense before he left, and was kind of an issue. And then we have Alex Kipman, who is still with Microsoft and is working on the HoloLens team. And there are some details that we would like you guys to go read in our report. Again, we're not going to kind of go through them over here in the podcast, but again, it's basically some details about the abuse of management, people blowing up after certain showcases or whatnot. And I think the thing that sticks out the most out of all of these things is Satya Nadella's response to all of this, because he is the man in charge, he is the CEO, and a lot of people are saying that he has a non-confrontational style of addressing this, which, for misconduct that is confrontational may not be the approach that people want to see. We, haven't heard from Microsoft about, one way or the other, whether or not they're ready to address this or if these allegations are in fact true. But we will be keeping up with this story. Obviously, we're going to report on it as more information details come out about this. Like we said, Satya Nadella came in about 7 years ago and, he said he's going to clean this up. It's unfortunate that we're still hearing that this is going on, especially for top executives who are still within the company. So we would, we're going to hopefully see some changes soon.
And all that said, we hit all of our main topics, which mean it is time for the fast recap, which we should make.
Hold on. Before we get to the fast recap, I know that Kip wanted us to also make sure that we did kind of relate the two things, because as Microsoft is trying to, clean up their own backyard, they are bringing on Activision Blizzard, which, for those of you in the know, is a whole host of other issues. And, Bobby Kotick, who is the CEO of Activision Blizzard, is at the forefront of all of these. So it kind of brings into question what, how and when or they will address his tenure at the company, especially with all the allegations and lawsuits that are tied to him specifically, along with the company as well, which is also, I believe, fighting the state of California. Fair Employment has a lawsuit against them. Whether or not they keep him on board, or if this is the turning point, maybe this will be where they say, okay, we got rid of him, and now let's start getting rid of all of our own people in line. So again, keep that in mind when you read or see headlines about the work environments at both Activision Blizzard and Microsoft, because hopefully soon they'll become one, and maybe Satya Nadella can address that.
Important point. Now we could get into the fast recap, and we have about, I think it's, what is it, 4 or 5 topics to get to. So
this might be the shortest one we have.
We'll try and make it 5 minutes instead of 10, but 10 minutes on the
we got a challenge.
10 minutes on the clock as usual, and I'll let you begin with the news about Xbox game streaming stick.
Yeah, Microsoft is confirming that the Keystone project, I believe that's a project code name for it, is still in the works, and they have a new approach to it, but it is something that is actually happening. We've been talking about it, rumored, and kind of seeing details about it. Microsoft just came out and said, yeah, we're working on it, but we hit a snag. They won't tell us what the snag is, but we are looking to basically redo our efforts. So they could be starting over, so it could be even longer before we see this, but. The reason that they're starting over is because I believe, in quote, as part of any technical journey, we're constantly evaluating our efforts, reviewing our learnings, and ensuring we are bringing value to our customers. We have made the decision to pivot away from the current iteration of the Keystone device, which we don't know what that means. We will take our learnings and refocus our efforts on a new approach that will allow us to deliver Xbox Cloud Gaming to more players around the world in the future. That's all they've said at the moment. You and I have speculated off camera what this might mean. You believe it's an operating system issue, which by God, we know that they have operating system issues. And I want to say it's a hardware and pricing issue. I believe, I think the last line saying that they want to get Xbox Cloud Gaming to more players around the world. I'm taking that as a sign of finances. If we can get this stick down to $100, lower than $100, if we can get it down to $50 to $60 or so, they can get it to more people. They can have them plugged behind more TVs.
And that said, second topic in the fast recap is dynamic refresh rate coming to the Surface Laptop Studio. So the Surface Laptop Studio always had a fancy screen with a high refresh rate of either 60 hertz or 120 hertz, and you had to pick one or the other when you needed it. Say you were scrolling through Twitter or YouTube or doing web browsing, you want 120 hertz because it makes it smooth, and you want 60 hertz when you're just sitting on your desktop and not doing anything, because you don't want 120 hertz to consume your battery when you don't need it. So now with dynamic refresh rate, it's been enabled in the Windows 11 system settings, and Surface Laptop Studio will be able to pick the right refresh rate when it sees it, and it makes your device a whole lot better.
Almost a whole year later since they announced it.
Yeah.
You should. I mean, I think as a avid consumer and just someone in the media, what about your experience with it so far? I know you have some warnings, right?
So far, I like it, and it's working great when you're not plugged into multiple monitors. But if you're plugged into multiple monitors, you might have an issue or two where the screen might flash and where it might go blank momentarily. But if you're disconnected and you're using the laptop studio on its own, it's really awesome, because you can see and feel the difference when it switches between 120 hertz and 60 hertz automatically, and it's good for performance and great for battery life as well.
The next thing we have is Windows 11's latest optional update brings Windows Spotlight desktop experience to more people. I haven't gotten it, so I don't even know who these more people are. This is ridiculous. I need to talk to somebody in management. Nadella, I'm talking to you. But again, more people are being able to get, I believe, what we call the new backgrounds. Is it? That's
Yeah,
what it
it's
is.
basically getting new backgrounds from Microsoft each day on your Windows 11 desktop, and it's coming with that optional update. So if you go to Windows Update and then you click check for updates, I think you'll see 05 optional update, and it has a weird KB name like usual. But if you install the optional update, restart your PC, you should see like a new icon. Once you go into settings and you choose Windows Spotlight as your wallpaper option, you'll see a new icon at the top of your screen, and you could click the icon to sync and switch between the different pictures. And they're nice pictures and they look beautiful. But if you're hooked up to multiple monitors or a 4K monitor, I believe it's Zach who pointed it out, it's not going to look very beautiful, and it's not going to look very precise, and it's going to look kind of blurry because the wallpapers aren't yet tweaked for 4K resolution.
Yeah, heck, I think he even mentioned that it's specifically for Surface devices who have an odd DPI to
Yeah,
begin with. So
yeah.
I think it's anything that's close to 2K or more. So if you're working on a full HD 1980 by 1020 or something like that, these wallpapers look beautiful, even on like you said, a secondary monitor that has that aspect ratio. But if you're going anything close to 2K, you're going to start to see, like you said, some blurriness. Only in some of them. Some of them are high res. A lot of them aren't. And again, they're just kind of working for the lowest common denominator, which is the browser. They're just bringing this over. So maybe they'll up the resolution on these later. Last thing we have, and hopefully within our still 5 minutes, Microsoft is slowing the hiring process for the core Windows team and Office team. Big news, because normally Microsoft wants to, speed up hiring and get more people to do more things and bring more, which should in turn mean more features. There's a reason why they're slowing this down, and do you know why?
They're slowing it down because other companies are slowing down their hiring. I think it was also Meta and Salesforce announced that they're slowing down their hiring due to the pandemic. It's basically a way to save money and not overspend at a time when the economy isn't the greatest. And that report came from Bloomberg, and per that report, the hiring that Microsoft does opt to do across those three groups must be approved by the leadership team that falls under Rajesh Ja. Sorry if I said the name wrong, but basically he has to approve all hires across those three core teams from now on. And it's basically because those groups have also recently expanded, and Microsoft wants to quote unquote make sure it is making the right hires in the right places.
So if you're hoping to get in with very little experience, they are now looking and scrutinizing those resumes. So
Uh,
lie some more if you have to.
and that said, a fast recap is now over, and it's time for our week ahead segment.
Yeah, I believe this is mostly you. I'll get into the beginning with my Acer stuff, but what do you got with the Logitech MS Master 3S giveaway?
Well, if I turn off my background here and get the mouse in, this is the Logitech Master 3S. It's basically the same mouse as the Logitech Master 3, which is quite popular with a lot of people. But the difference with this one is that it is one of those quiet click mouses now. So you're getting quiet clicks across both of these, and you still have the magnetic scroller in the middle, as well as the side buttons where you get to do your side scrolling. And another change also is with the sensor. The DPI sensor now goes up to 8,000 DPI, which is great if you're using the mouse with multiple monitors. So it's a little small upgrade compared to the Logitech Master 3, but we did our full review on this. I think it was on Monday or Tuesday, the same day as build. So if you scroll back, you'll see our review, and go check out our review. And we're giving this away to one of our lucky viewers next week. So keep tuned for the full post and details on how you could enter.
Yeah, I just also want to say a shout out to Nikita, who is one of our listeners who got the Lenovo. I hope she's enjoying it. What else do we got? You have a review for
That Dell 4K 34-inch monitor that I had on my desk for the last 2 weeks. I love it so much. I don't want to get to review. Like, I want to keep it. It's basically because it's an awesome monitor that works for both work and play, because you get that 120 hertz for your Xbox, and then you get the 144 hertz for your video editing and gaming on Windows PCs. And I love it. And you're going to get my full review next week. I promise.
I think, like I said, I owe you guys the Lenovo 9i, which again is a great device. I am in the middle of the write up, so I just want to make sure I got all my testing and everything, my numbers correct. So hopefully that should be coming out right after Labor Day. I just got an Acer Swift as well, the latest one, and I'll be taking it through its paces. I'll tell you right now, it's a 60x9, so I'm a little upset, but I will test it out as I can. And I believe a company reached out to me to review a standing desk. So those of you who are still in the process of upgrading your workspace environments, I might have a review for you about a new desk you put in there as well. So hopefully all of that should be coming within the next week or two.
And we're great to have new partners on board like Acer.
Yes, we were thanking them. We're welcoming them. We're hoping, like you said, we also have Dell at your end. And next, we're waiting on Samsung to give us some stuff.
Yeah. And if you guys keep watching us, that's what we're here for. We love to talk about our products and tell people about how awesome these companies are.
Yeah, and what our experiences are and what you guys can
Yep.
hopefully expect before you spend your hard-earned money.
And that said, I think we've hit the end of the podcast here. And I know we went over our usual 30 to 40-minute time frame, but we got a lot of news in a short period of time.
Yeah, with that being said, you can find me at Mindhead1 on Twitter. Where can people find you?
Back Jern.
Yeah, and for all the news that is related to Microsoft, you can go to onmicrosoft.com, which is our website, or you can go to On Microsoft, which is our Twitter handle, which is a truncated version of all of our stories, all of our headlines, all of the latest news, reviews, editorials, anything about gaming, like I said, accessory reviews and whatnot. You can also visit us on Instagram, which we'll have recaps of our podcast on there. And some other, related news. And if you're into gaming, you can go visit our Pinterest page. And I believe you can just type in on Microsoft, where Brad keeps you up to date on the latest Xbox stuff. I believe there are rumors about a mid-fresh coming through, and I believe this is by who gave us this, TCL or something like that. Somebody random. Sorry about there. We should expect new hardware mid-fresh. So again, if you're wanting that kind of content, visit that page. Aside from that, I hope you guys have a great weekend. Won't keep you any longer. Go out and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for being with us, and we hope to see you again next week.
All right, everyone. See you again soon. Same place, same time.
Stay safe.
Bye.